Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
In Bible times, women were sometimes treated more like property than people. But I love how God put strong women, both good and bad, in the Bible. One of my favorites is Abigail. Her husband Nabal, whose name appropriately means stupid, had insulted David and his men, and even after they had protected his servants and flocks. One wise servant informed Abigail of the situation, and she immediately acted, not only meeting the enraged David as he was on his way to kill Nabal and his household, but bringing him food and discerning, humble, godly advice. Not only did her intervention make David rethink his intentions, but David blessed Abigail and later proposed to her after God had taken vengeance on her husband. Now that you've heard the Cliff Notes version of the story, I encourage you to read 1 Samuel 25 for yourself. It's a great story. Though Abigail got saddled with a foolish man, we can see that she didn't let him define her. She became the quintessential Proverbs 31 woman that Nabal would never deserve or appreciate. It certainly wasn't Nabal's foolishness that made him rich. It was most likely his wife's wise management of his affairs. Even the servants knew if there was a problem, go to Abigail. And you know she had to have plenty of patience to put up with such a foolish man. Yet she treated him with respect and honor. She wasn't a nagging, overbearing wife. Even those of us with wise, thoughtful, loving husbands like mine can learn a lot about being a good wife from Abigail. When Abigail got hit by a crisis, say like 600 warriors on their way to murder everyone in her household, she didn't panic. Her good reasoning and organizational skills kicked into action, and she did what needed doing quickly. I would love to be able to think on my feet and stay so calm like Abigail did. She gathered food and gifts and her courage and went out to meet David. It took a lot of guts for anyone, let alone an unprotected woman, to go out and meet 600 men, the leader of which was in a murderous rage intent on wiping out her household. But that was Abigail. She probably didn't have much time to formulate a speech, but what she ended up saying was more persuasive than any lawyer could have been. Instead of making excuses, covering up, or ignoring her husband's weaknesses, she took all the blame for his folly and gently reminded David that he was a man after God's own heart and should leave the Lord to fight his battles. He didn't want the guilt of innocent blood on his hands. That was such good counsel. It doesn't matter how justifiable our anger is. We need to take a step back and see the situation from God's perspective instead of rushing in. Sometimes if we leave room for God to work for us, He takes care of the whole situation without us having to lift a finger, as He did here for David. Don't we all need a friend and need to be a friend like Abigail, reminding others of God's promises and His heart? And notice she didn't do it in a in-your-face kind of way. She gently and humbly became a peacemaker in the situation, pointing David to the Lord, challenging him to do God's will. And when Abigail returned home, her wise discernment kept her mouth shut. She knew it would do no good to tell her husband while he was drunk. She waited until the next morning, and when she told him, the Bible says his heart died within him and became like stone. Maybe he had a heart attack or something. One way or the other, the Lord struck him, and he died 10 days later. When David heard the news, he immediately praised God for taking care of the situation and for keeping him from sin. Then he sent a marriage proposal to Abigail. She made quite an impression on him. And you know what she did? Without a second thought, she left all the riches of Nabal behind, walked away from it all, to become the wife of a fugitive living in the wilderness. Why? Well, for one, she wasn't attached to all those riches. And she had faith. Faith that God would fulfill his promises to David, that he would be king, which would make her queen. Granted, one of many, but queen nonetheless. Another reason she left everything was because she knew David was a man after God's own heart. With Nabal, she likely didn't have a choice. Back in that culture, parents usually chose the husband for a girl. But as a rich widow, Abigail might have been able to have her choice of men. She chose to leave it all behind for a man of faith. And I'm sure she was blessed for this decision. In so many ways, I would like God to make me more like Abigail, a woman of faith, gentleness, and courage. How about you? What Abigail-like qualities would you like the Lord to cultivate in you?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through his word. You can listen to other episodes at our website, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.